Hi, I'm Trev and thank you for joining us as I continue through our look into cycling injuries, preventing cycling injuries, and how you can get fitter and healthier with an incredible sport. Today, we're going to look a little bit deeper into neck pain when riding. It's a really common problem for cyclists, especially for road cyclists who are spending a lot of time on the bike, upwards from 2 or 3 hours. Quite often around the 70 to 80k mark is a big problem for people when they start developing their neck pain. So if this is you and you're developing neck pain when you're riding, then this is a video just for you. Likewise, guys, if you're loving our information, please like and subscribe to our channel, turn on the notifications. It's the easiest way you can keep up to date with the information that we're bringing out. We're constantly bringing new information out to try and help you achieve more and more and more in your life. Anyway, so let's get to it. So what we want to talk about today is neck pain, especially as it relates to cycling, because cycling neck pain is a little bit different than other sports. There's problems with cycling neck pain, and that is if you're getting neck pain when you're riding, it can actually be due to two different things. So the first thing, of course, is you yourself, the actual person, and the second one, which is a very unique thing in cycling, is the actual bike you're riding. Now, of course, the more free areas you have, the less likely you are to have issues with injuries, generally speaking, but that's not always the case either. So what I mean by free areas, what I'm talking about is fixed points. So if you're on a road bike and you're clipped in with your shoes, your hands are stuck on one spot on a set of brake levers, your shoes are stuck in, or your feet are stuck into your clipped pedals, and your bum start on your saddle. So therefore you've got 3 points which are actually closed. They can't move in any direction. So therefore having the bike set up correctly is really, really important. When we start talking about areas that are free, so you have pedals where your feet just sit on them and you pedal, and your feet can actually move over the pedal, and you're talking about flat bar handlebars, we can actually move your hands a slight amount around the bar. We tend to see less issues with these type of things simply because we don't have what we call that closed kinematic chain. So here are some of the key things that we tend to see. So when we start looking at the person first, the top one, of course, is fatigue. Fatigue is a really big problem, and this comes down to training techniques, it comes down to dietary habits. There's a whole lot of different things that can go with that. Overtraining is another one, so we're not going to go into that today. We'll do another session on that specifically. Next one, interestingly enough, is our pelvic tilt. So the actual shape of your pelvis, whether you have a sway back or whether you have a flat back, can change how you activate your glutes, especially your glute medius and your glute max, and that can change power output, but it can also change as well the stability within your sacroiliac joints. And one of the things we commonly see is when people are getting irritation of the sacroiliac joints, they start developing neck extensor problems. So this is a big problem as well. And the one that's often forgotten about is the TMJ, and this is actually really, really important. The jaw in cycling is probably one of the least understood and most underdiagnosed problems in cyclists that I have ever come across in more than 20 years of working with cyclists. So the key with it is that when we have TMJ issues, we can start developing upper neck problems with that, and that becomes highlighted in the positions we get ourselves into when we're riding, especially on road and mountain bikes. But anyway, that's the person. We can talk about that another time. I want to talk to you a little bit more about the bike today and how the bike plays a part in what we're talking about here. And we're going to keep it relatively broad with the statements here because we don't really have a lot of time. I don't want to spend hours and hours going through this, but if you do want detail, please just let me know and I'll talk to you about that in some length in each of these areas. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the stem. So your stem is this little piece that goes from this area here, from the head tube all the way across to where your handlebars are. This is called the stem of the bike, and the stem is a really, really important piece of equipment. Couple of reasons why. The first one is the angle of the stem itself can affect the height, and the position that it sits on the tube itself, on the steerer, can actually affect a lot of different avenues. So we can make a bike seem smaller or make a bike seem bigger just by affecting the stem itself. So if the stem starts getting too long for somebody, then what we'll see is these people start reaching out too far. We see their body weight going too far forward, and we start seeing the neck having to over-contract to try and stabilize it. Likewise, if the stem is dropped too low, what we can do if we drop the stem too low, again, we're going to come down, we're going to compress ourselves up a little bit, and we're going to start putting, again, stress through that neck area. So getting the right stem position is really, really important. Brake lever angle. So this is not really an important when we start talking about flat bar, but when we're talking about road bikes, this is a really key thing. So what we often see is we see bike shops all the time setting up their brake levers on road bikes in a vertical position. And some of the companies are starting to get aware of this now. So Campag naturally has their brake levers on a slight internal, like an inwards rotation. But what we want to see is that we need to make sure that there is some curvature inwards of the brake levers. The main reason for that is when you ride, if we're having our arms, the brake lever straight and our arms are straight, the problem that we're going to have is it tends to keep too much external rotation through the elbows, through the shoulders. We get flat in the shoulders themselves rather than a curved arrow type position. And the result of all of that is we get increased contraction with the neck extensors themselves. So something as simple as just turning your brake levers in about 5 degrees like that, just so they sit in the natural angle of your hand. So I put my hand out like that way, you can see my hand tends to tilt in a little bit. It doesn't sit this way, it tends to sit that way. That's the angle that we want our brake levers on to take the tension out of the neck. A really simple thing that's really, really important. Saddle angle is another one that's often forgotten about. So the saddle should actually sit straight. Okay, it should actually be straight across here, should not be pointing up or pointing down. So when the saddle is pointing down, we'll tend to slide forward on the saddle. As we tend to slide forward on the saddle, weight shifts forward on the bike. We start putting more weight onto our hands, which can often create wrist problems in cyclists, and it can also then lead to a whole lot of more force on the upper body, on the shoulders, on your elbows, and of course all that is taken up by the neck as well. So we need to make sure that our saddle is straight and we don't have that tilt downwards. Likewise, if the saddle's tilted up a little bit, you're going to be reaching and you're going to be grabbing for your handlebars or for your brake levers for road cyclists, and the result of that as you lean forward so far is you're going to start creating problems again, not only with your neck this time, but also with hip flexors. There's a common thing that we see with cyclists who are getting hip problems, pelvic floor issues, irritation to the pubic bone is another common one that we see with people who don't have a flat saddle. So we need to make sure that's the case. Saddle shape can also be an interesting one. So we've spoken about this, I've done another video on it, so you can have a look at the other video when I talk about saddle shape in detail. But between your legs, you actually have a soft bit of tissue there called your perineum. And irritation to the perineum creates a lot of problems. It creates numbness, it creates irritation, can create urinary problems, prostate problems, a whole lot of different issues can come from that. So one of the things that we often see is if people are getting irritation to that perineum, what they'll naturally try and do is try and move off it. And some people will rotate on the saddle, so they'll actually rotate their whole body on the saddle to try and take pressure off it. Some people will actually start leaning backwards or leaning forwards. Some people start leaning to the side. Either way, what it does do is it throws out symmetry, it throws out that balance that we need left, right, forward, backwards, and the result of that again is that needs to be taken somewhere else. If your hands are fixed and your feet are fixed and your bottom is fixed, the place generally that adapts to that is the neck. We start to get twisting of the neck as we try and absorb those changes in posture. So there's a couple of quick things to look through with the bike. Stem height and length is also important. Brake lever angle, we want to be slightly turned in. Saddle angle should be flat and we should have a nice saddle shape. If we are getting perineal irritation, having a nice open slit to allow the perineum to fit in can actually help that quite tremendously. Anyway guys, if you want me to cover any of this stuff in detail, just message me and I'll give you some information. If you're having problems with your bike or your neck when you're riding, please don't hesitate to message me. There's often really simple things that can be done to restore or create changes in the bike or in you that can actually relieve it and start letting you enjoy cycling again. Anyway guys, if you have any questions, post them up or send them through to me. Otherwise, please like and share our videos and I'll catch up with you in the next vid. Bye for now.